Hello everyone, welcome back. So in this part, what we'll do is we'll take a look at how to clean it up better and get a bit more cleaner output out of this. So first things first, what we'll do is we'll go back to painting, and we did a very rough job. So there are a lot of small sections and parts that are not very clean, especially around this area. So we will try to clean those up and make bigger shapes, proper shapes for the scales. I can see this area needs a bit more painting, so we'll get on it. First, I'll go to the paint mode and start painting. Now, if you go to the disable lighting, it will be much more easier to see the colors. And if you go to the clean BG, you can see these gaps, they are not nice. So you have to avoid having such gaps. You can see here. So I'll sample, and as mentioned before, always switch off mirror scale so that it's faster to work with. All right. So, and yeah, for now, we will leave it. Ideally, it's better to work with part A, partition A, and then later on partition B. Would be isolate partition A and then start painting. So in here, for a good output, it's always has to be all these painting of scales need to be with reference. So right now, I'm not bothered about all those. I'm just trying to show you how the tool works. But ideally, spend some time on painting the scales, cleaning up each and everything. The more time you spend on it, the more quality you can get out of it. So close up or patch up all these holes. Even here you can see there are holes. So this unlit mode or disable lighting mode helps you see all these gaps properly. And let's see. This is just to see the gaps in the center. So we have to avoid all that. This color. This color. You can switch on mirror scales at time to see how this will come out. And I want the rest of the colors so that we can clean up all these. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this into painted scales up until maybe here. So more of painting required, and I will clean up all these small pieces. This blue color, which will create a very small scale in here, and that will cause overlaps. So what I will do is I will just clean that up like that, like so. Okay, I will convert all these into a single scale. Also check the clean BG so that there is no gap. And make sure you switch between the clean BG mode and color mode to see if you are leaving any gaps. Like this. We don't need gaps. We don't like gaps. So this part I will just fast forward so that it's basically the same thing, but bit time consuming. So I will do a quick paint over and clean up, and then I will show you, come back and show you the result. So you can see I have made some painting adjustment. Basically, I painted all this section and added a few of these sort of shapes around eyes. Now, as mentioned earlier, it's better to look into good reference and then do all this painting. Um, And I have cleaned up all the small pixels that were or artifacts that were caused by the paint. So I have done all that. Now let's take a look with the tiles, split tiles. So this is the tiles paint. You can see with the geometry scales. And one of the things that I have to fix is which is not with the tool is painting or cleaning up the paint once you have geometry scales. This need to be implemented, so that will be done at a later stage. But for now, you cannot do anything about the small, you see one pixel here, small artifacts caused by geometry scales. So there is a workaround for that. So if I switch to tiles, so you have a under the global controls, you have a prune section where you can change the values. So I believe by default the value is 0.01, which will leave some small, you see, some small islands like this, which are very tiny and very small. So we need to clean up all those. So easiest way would be prune using changing the values in the prune. So go for a 0.02. This is based on the surface area. So the smaller ones will be pruned away. Let's see, it cleans up quite a lot of area. And it also leaves, there is this problem of leaving a bit of gap. So maybe have to go a little smaller, the one. Let's see how that goes. Yeah, I think that will solve that issue. So yeah, that helps a bit. And wherever you can paint it and fill it up. So you can see here there is this small space over there, which you can easily paint it away. So what I'll do is I'll do a quick paint of that. So I'll go back to paint mode and not sure what I'm seeing there, but I will just paint over and it's slow because mirror scales is on. I think there's one pixel missing. That should do mirror scales and that should solve it. Let's try space split again. Tiles. I think that will solve it. Okay, I think it looks quite clean. Now let us generate scales again and see how that goes. Okay, so this is the generate mesh and with the new paint and cleanup done. So this seems much more cleaner. Now one thing to note here is that the bunch is a bit too much. So we can reduce that under the global controls. Mm, bunch multiplier. So you can change it to something bit smaller. Maybe I'll try one. Let's see how that looks. I think this is quite fine for now. Yeah, just let's keep this. So this is how it looks right now. Now, one of the things is that I don't like this sort of scales. I think I will add one more type of scale. So I have already modified one of these. So to check that, something like this. So just try it out. So we have this version. I took this and modified it to something a bit more like that. You can always change or try different types of scales. So I'll add this in. So we have like 3. So we need to add more ID. So we will go back to our model and go back to painting ID. So right now we just have 1 and 2 IDs. Now we can add one more. And let me change the ID to 1, 2, 3. And we will throw some of this here. Right now we are not um, focusing on back of body. Maybe we'll need bigger ones for back of body, but here we will just have smaller ones. Here, here anyway it is painted, so even if you draw something, nothing will come here. I have here something. Okay, I think that should be good enough. Now, if you go to scales low, then you already have this new scale, and we can mix these together under ID control. So there is an ID random RAM, which you can easily can control it. Whatever, mixing together, point interval. You can play with all these things to have a better idea of how this works. ID percent. So this is just to mix things together, and that helps quite a bit. Okay. Mix these together. So ID percent basically adds in more of base built-in scales. So say 100% means fully built-in scales and mixing with the built-in scales. This gives you a bit of able to control it. And yeah, I think we will try this. Okay, let me try. Ideally, it should be a bit more different in terms of shape, so I can actually do that. Maybe like this, maybe. Let's see how that looks. Slow. Might be. Maybe we need more of these in this area. So maybe deleting it out or erasing some of the paint might work. Anyways, I will just draw some ID over here. So let's go with 3, ID 3012. Like that. Maybe here too. And if you want, you can go here, go back to scale low, and just evaluate how it looks. And I'm actually overdoing it. Let's send that. Okay, let's try a generate to see how that looks. All right, so this is the generated version with the new IDs added in. It doesn't look right, but the idea is valid. You can, the basic idea is that you create your own, add your own separate convention scales, and then add that in and build it bit by bit. So this is all about the tool, or most of it. There are a lot of controls here that you can try it out. For instance, one of it that I can show you is scale slow. If you go to scale slow, there's something called base offset. Basically means basic scales. That is, the built-in scales can be offset outside. So right now it's 0.2. You can see it comes out. That's 2. And the painted versions, which are the hero scales, can be separately controlled. You can't see it in viewport, but basically this will come out when you generate it. It only works when it's generated. So default values usually should work. Oh, it's good. To see the hero offset, you can switch to high-res version. Give it a second to load it up. All right, and you can use this now. Hero offset. Let's say you want, I don't know, a bigger value. Let's apply. Let's go a bit more higher. See, it will offset the main hero scales, as you can see. And this is the blend spread. So these are the hero scales, and there's a spread of the scales so that they are well integrated. The hero scales are well integrated around its scales, around the base scales. So that's why they also become sort of hero. So I will just go back to 0.002. Okay, so that is that. And then side bulge. Yeah, this is an interesting thing. So the sides of the scales can be, so by the default, the value side bulge is 0.01, which means it's bulges out. But we can also go negative so that it bulges inside. So you can see it's actually bulging inside, which might be useful in some cases. It actually caves in. So that gives an interesting look to the scales. Now I prefer it to have a positive small value, 0.01. Okay, back to Lotus mesh. Here it's low. And in here, you can have a tangent offset. By that it means will, say, it will move away. So that is also something interesting. Usually I keep it a very small value. Actually, it's kept to 0. You don't always need that. So 1.01. We go for a small value. And the usual bend multiplier, which will obviously make a bend. So bend like that. So keep it small again. If you have too much intersection, you can always change it. Always look for intersection in the iris mesh. This is not the correct representation. So okay. And what else? Yeah, scale gap. Now this one you can see clearly in the tiles form. Right. Now what scale gap does is if you change it, it will increase the gap between these scales. So in this case, I'm going to go for 1. It increases the gap, and you need to have scale gap iteration much higher value to increase the gap. 0.4 should be fine. It'll be much more smoother. I mean, the default value should work fine. So I'll go for the default values. Yeah. Mesh quality refers to the hero scales mesh resolution. So in this case, let me change this to something like this one, which will be very low res. Uh, this case will be very low res. So I'll just generate it to show you, to demonstrate. I will just overwrite one. Okay, so this is um, the new generated mesh with the resolution changed. So you can see it's very low res and it gives some sort of shading issues. So that's why it's always better to keep it to the mesh quality, change it to points. The default value should be fine. So it's 0.08. So that should give you enough resolution to have a very clear shapes. So again, we can write it. Okay, so now you can see the difference. And it will capture a lot of noise that you have under 10 scale detail. There's a surface noise where you have this. And the resolution helps you capture all that noise, which is quite nice. And that is pretty much it with the tool. So again, this is a tool just to help you with a 70% of automating the process, and it still require a lot of user input, proper painting of scales, uh, referring to good reference, and then painting accordingly. Help you in changing the direction of scales and all that. But still, it's just a tool. And once this is done, the idea is to take this to ZBrush and then convert this into a proper sculpt so that you can sculpt more on it, basically cleaning up all these gaps and stuff, which I think it's much better to do in ZBrush than in Houdini. This tool will be soon available from my Gumroad store. So hopefully you guys will find it useful.